Hi guys, I'm Nick Bester. I'm a 2:19 marathoner and welcome back to my channel. And today's video is all about how to give yourself the best possible chance at remaining injury-free on your journey going forward. If you've been injured in the past, if you're currently injured or have a high amount of niggles, then I'm sure you're going to find this video super helpful. But just to put things into perspective for you, I've been running for 11 years now. In the last 5 years, I haven't had to take one day off due to a niggle. In my 11-year journey, I've had one stress reaction in my tibia and I've had a slightly tight Achilles. And apart from that, I've been pretty injury-free. And I've pretty much narrowed it down to 8 tips and 8 points that I've learned along my journey that I'm going to share with you today. Because ultimately, in order to improve, we need to snap out of the comfort zone. We need to work extremely hard at times, but we also need to work smart because I definitely don't want you to break. So let's keep things smart because getting injured sucks and let's avoid that at all costs. So here's my top 8 tips to give yourself the best chance of remaining injury-free on your journey going forward. Okay, number 1 is to train and run to the correct effort. Yes, there's lots of metrics that tells us exactly how hard we're training, but ultimately you know yourself better than your watch does, and you need to be honest with yourself and train to the correct effort. So what I mean by that is that your recovery run should probably be around 60 to 72% of what your heart rate max is, okay? These recovery easy everyday runs should make up about 70 to as much as 80% of your training. So they're really the foundation of our training, and they should feel easy. It should feel like you can have a conversation the whole way. If you run to the correct effort in sessions, you're getting the most out your training and you're also giving yourself the best chance at being productive and remaining injury-free. So keep those easy runs easy. If you're following a heart rate, it's sort of between 60 to 72%. If I think back to my early years of running, when I was a 3:17 marathoner, it was probably about a minute slower to a minute and a half slower than what I'm running at the moment. So over time, your zone 2 and your easy running will increase, but that comes from pushing on the high end and being consistent. It doesn't come from pushing on those easy runs. As far as sort of tempo work, threshold work, heel work goes, we're looking to work comfortably tough here. You can say a few words, but not a full sentence. I've made the mistake in the past, especially when I've trained with groups, that tempo ends up turning into a race. And that's just not good for anyone because yes, you feel like you flew in that session, but you don't recover as much. So when it comes to your VO2 max work or your hard weekend work, let's say, sometimes you're not as recovered as you should be and you're not being as productive. So put a cap on your threshold and tempo work. You're working hard, but you're saving a lot. Then as far as track and interval running goes, here we can work very hard. This is the main speed session of the week and we need to really snap out of our comfort zones. Push yourself hard in the session, but remember, don't end up racing it. In order to get the most out of training, we need to save that extra little bit of a percentage for race day. So when it comes to race day, we know there's 1 or 2 more percent that we haven't used up in training. Those race efforts are all out efforts. They take a lot out on the body. It takes the body a lot longer to recover. So save those race efforts for race day and avoid going through those motions in training. Okay, on to number 2, and this is strength work. Strength work is a crucial part to training. Even though us runners love running, we hate doing the bits and pieces around running, we need to do strength so that our bodies and muscles can handle the load of training, all right? Strength work also makes us stronger. Stronger means faster at the end of the day. I encourage 1 weighted session a week. I think, in my early years, I very rarely did strength and it almost caught up to me. And then I started doing 1 weighted session every week where I was weighted and loading the weights, getting stronger and stronger along my journey. And I really found out that once I started doing this, the niggles significantly reduced. So that's a huge part to training. However, I'm sort of at that point in my running journey now where I need to focus a little bit on plyometric work. So I encourage you to do the same. So more like jumps, one-legged work, box jumps, explosive calf raises, explosive jump lunges, those sorts of things. What it does is it just brings some life and pop into your stride. Your stride feels a little bit better. And ultimately, like I said, if your body's stronger, it can handle a little bit more load. Remember, you're only as strong as your weakest body part. Maybe once you've done a race or a marathon, and what hurt the most, think back to, was it your glutes, was it your hammies, was it your calves? And take that going forward, work on that, strengthen it as much as possible. Remember, strength work is the long-term fix for a lot of niggles out there, but we must focus on our weakest part because ultimately we don't want that to hold us back in our full send target races. Okay, on to point number 3, we need to take recovery as seriously as you take training. Once again, we enjoy training. We don't always find the time to recover, but that's crucial if we want to remain injury-free. For example, if you're running for 10 hours a week, you should spend half the amount of time on recovery, so at least 5 hours. And in those 5 hours, what you're looking to do is you're looking to do it like a combination of maybe foam rolling, massage guns, sports massages, maybe a cold bath, an Epsom salt bath, those sorts of things. So really just giving love and attention to those tight muscles, releasing the tension so that come the next day, the body's feeling good and not locked up and tight and ready to go. The single biggest thing, and I often say it on this channel when it comes to recovery, is sleep. And we must prioritize getting at least 8 hours sleep. If you look at the world's best, the East Africans of the world, they're getting a lot more than 8 hours sleep, and they're napping in the day between the double runs. So they don't, deal with things like massage guns, foam rolling, and all of that. They eat, sleep, train, repeat. As a parent myself, I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm not gonna lie, I don't always get 8 hours. In fact, today I was up at 4:30 in the morning. So today was a bit of a struggle, but hey, we keep it real, and we always try aim for 8 hours at least. Hopefully I'll make up for that tonight. Okay, on to point number 4, and this is what I call a daily routine. All right, it's only 10 to 15 minutes of your day, and ultimately what this is like a sequence of core stretching, foam rolling, and a little bit of strength and conditioning. I'll link in the description below my one. As physically rejuvenating as the session is, and we work on bits and pieces, it's also a mental rejuvenation session. We're sort of mentally preparing ourselves for the training ahead, okay? Running can take a lot out of you mentally to consistently show up day in and day out. You really need to try and fit in this 10 to 15 minute routine, and it just keeps the body loose, it keeps the body mobile. I call it a daily routine. I used to do it every day. Life got a bit crazy. Life's just as crazy for you most likely. So aim to do it at least 3 times a week. Even if you do it once a week, it's better than none, but 3 times a week is incredible. If you're able to do it every day, then you're going to be flying past me very soon. Okay, on to point number 5, heels, heels, heels. Choose that heel route. Get those heel repeats in, get those heel sprints in. Heels honestly pay the bills. I realized in my early years of training, when I used to train in Johannesburg, South Africa, it was very, very hilly, and I trained for an ultra marathon called Comrades. And what that did was it allowed my body to build the muscles and sort of give you that strength and stamina you need in order to attack a hilly race. Train on the heels, fly on the flats, okay? I then moved to London, and London's fairly flat, so you have to search long and hard for heels. But I've since then, in the last 5 months, moved back to countryside, and there's no shortage of heels here, that I can guarantee you. And thankfully, I've managed to significantly level up in the last 5 months. Long may that continue into the next 5 years. But I think a big portion of that is because I've reintroduced a lot more elevation, a lot more hilly training into my weekly schedule. Remember, heels are basically like strength work in disguise. If you keep doing them, it's hard to choose that hilly option, but it really, your body feels so much stronger after doing them week in, week out. If it feels tough in the beginning, stick with it, and with consistency over time, it'll get easier and your body will adapt. Okay, on to point number 6. And this is all about a gradual progression week on week. Okay, don't do anything drastic in the running world. Basically, if you look at your Strava graph, your training graph, anything, it should be gradual. Try and avoid excess massive spikes within your training. Often, like if you need to take 1 step backwards, take 2 steps forward, that's completely fine. And by that, it might be a recovery week. You might be doing 5 or 6 really consistently good training weeks, and then you just need a down week, a recovery week. And what that means, it doesn't mean you need to stop running at all. It might just mean a little bit more cross training. You're taking a break from intense running, no sessions. You're going out as and when the body wants to, and you're just allowing sort of the muscle fibers that we break down within training to just rejuvenate and repair and mentally rejuvenate for like a nice solid 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to go. Basically, if you're doing 100 Ks a week, try not go over 110 the following week. And if you do want to increase, small little incremental increases. Okay, the same goes with intensity. Look at the amount of intensity you're doing within your training week. It probably should be around 20 to 30% of your training week is a bit harder and should be intense. Ultimately, if your mileage is increasing, then so too should your intensity a little bit. But try and avoid massively spiking that intensity, loading up on that intensity, and nowhere else, because at the end of the day, something will eventually give. Okay, on to point number 7, and this has got to do with cross training. Okay, once again, I know us runners love running. We don't actually love cross training that much often, and it almost took me getting injured before I realized how beneficial cross training was. But I always say, if a niggle is more than sort of 6 or 7 out of 10, then you're much better off backing off at that point and jumping on the cross trainer. So by cross trainer, I mean things like spin bike, swimming, elliptical. And ultimately, when you do your sessions on there, replicate what you would have done running. So if you're following heart rates, make sure you're sort of training within the correct zones that you would have if you were running. Get that higher end work, get that lower end work, And there's just massive benefits to that non-impact recovery. Remember, running can be intense on your body. There's impact with every single step. When you're smashing it uphill, downhill in a big sessions, there's a lot of load that goes through your body. And especially in the early years, it takes a while for your body to adapt to be able to handle the load. So you might need to incorporate more cross training in your early years. And I promise you, you still get an aerobic benefit, and you probably get sometimes even more of a physical benefit because there's not that impact, so you feel a lot better the next day. Don't be in denial with yourself and something's hurting really, really badly, and it's sort of like 8 or 9 out of 10 and you're just trying to push through it, because ultimately that's how eventually I got my injury. Obviously, us runners diagnose a lot of things ourselves, but ultimately if anything's also bad, please go see a physio sooner rather than later. They're the professionals. I know you might have to spend a little bit more money, but then you get a proper diagnosis and you should get some good exercises in order to strengthen those areas moving forward. And then last but not least, and this point comes down to nutrition, okay? You are what you eat. And in my early years of running, there was sort of, that myth where us runners burn so many calories, we can just consume absolutely everything. So my diet was atrocious back then. Okay, I'm still trying to snap out of those bad habits, and I think maybe a lot of us are, but I've thankfully, cleaned up my diet a lot more and seen significant gains since then, as well as felt stronger. So a couple of points on that. When you finish a session, remember to get in about 20 to 35 grams worth of recovery protein in within half an hour afterwards. That recovery protein just gets absorbed by the body, goes into the muscles. You get a much better training effect out of it, and it speeds up that recovery process a whole lot quicker. Nutrition, you know what? It's a whole different world, and what works for me might not necessarily work for you. There are, qualified nutritionists out there, but I've realized before harder sessions, always try to get in some good, clean, fast-burning carbs, things like whole wheat pasta, brown rice, sweet potato, whole wheat bread, that sort of stuff. Your body's fueled up so that you can smash the session and then focus on more on protein after the session with a bit of carbs, because you get a better effect from that. But once again, I think the cleaner you can eat, the better. We work hard, so you must give yourself a cheat meal, especially towards the end of the week. But the more junk you avoid, the stronger you'll feel and the better it'll be for your running. Cool, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below. Remember, we're after longevity in running. We're always going to go through phases, and unfortunately, we are going to get niggles and potential injuries and stuff. And it's about how we react to those. It's also about giving ourselves the best chance in order to not get into those positions. So hopefully there's lots of little goodness and bits and pieces which you can take from this video in your journey going forward. And train smarter. Please don't get injured on me. Boom shakalaka. Let's go.